starting with our personal growth, our social evolution, but then the kinds of collaborations that really have not occurred before stand in front of us, tremendous opportunities. So we'll be touching on some of these themes today in the talk. But now I'd like to introduce Doug Ryle, who will give a little introduction to Vandana Shiva, who is just a remarkable figure. I like to call her the Rachel Carson of the 21st century. For those of you who are not aware of her work, you will be now, but she is setting a fantastic example for what needs to be done. We need many more like her on the front lines. And so without further ado, introduce Doug Ryle, the Managing Director of Synergetic Press, who facilitated Vandana's presence with us here today. Synergetic Press is publishing her new book, Reclaiming the Commons. And so without further ado, I'll turn it over to Doug Ryle.
Thanks to you and all the EarthDance organizers for creating this outstanding event. Hello all, my name is Douglas Reel and I'm the Managing Director at Synergetic Press. It is my pleasure today to introduce our Medicine Wheel Stage keynote speaker, Vandana Shiva, but I'd like to take a moment and share a little bit about what our press is up to these days. Synergetic Press, based in London and Santa Fe, is dedicated to regenerative topics centered on three primary areas of focus: consciousness and psychedelics, sustainability and biospheric sciences, and cultural anthropology and social justice. Recent publications include Dennis McKenna's landmark ethnopharmacologic search for psychedelic drugs, Mike Crowley's deep exploration on the original forms of Amrita and Soma in his Secret Drugs of Buddhism, and just recently a new edition of Life Under Glass, the story of the original enclosure of Biosphere 2, with updated information and the science performed and reflections on the lessons learned for the stewardship of our shared planet. And when it comes to the stewardship of our planet, there are few more dedicated and outspoken defenders of Mother Earth than Vandana Shiva. For nearly 40 years, she has defended communities against corporate biopiracy and extractive practices, particularly in the global South. And her unitive vision of Earth as family positions a new worldview for us to rally to and to manifest together. She is the author of over 20 books, and Synergetic Press is thrilled to be releasing her latest book, Reclaiming the Commons, Biodiversity, Traditional Knowledge, and the Rights of Mother Earth next month. The book details her work over the years defending against the efforts to enclose the commons and offers a new paradigm centered on the rights of nature and our interconnectedness. And so, without further ado, it is my great pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Vandana Shiva.
Thank you very much, Doug, and thank you to EarthDance. For me, life is about dancing with the earth, otherwise you're not living. And for me, the commons of life is both the consciousness that the earth is alive, that her biodiversity, the tapestry of her rich diversity, biological as well as cultural, weaves this commons. And just like if you cut a piece of cloth and destroy its weave, when you cut the weave of the commons through enclosures, through privatization, through grabbing, through extractivism, through illusions of superiority and civilizing missions, which a few white men have allocated themselves through the past 500 years of history, and they continue to do it even now. This addiction to the illusion of separation and superiority is the addiction we need to deal with. And I hope festivals like EarthDance contribute to a new consciousness, a new confidence among ordinary human beings that we are part of the earth, we are part of the commons. And therefore, every effort to protect the earth contributes to liberation of the human beings. Why do I talk about the illusion of separation, the illusion of superiority? Because we are part of the earth. All cultures of the world that have sustained themselves over thousands of years without destroying the earth, which supports them, recognize that we are part of the earth. We are not outside her, we are not above her, we are not her masters. This illusion of separation was necessary for creation of the narrative of mastery, of conquest, of colonization. But with it went the illusion of superiority. Not only are humans separate from the earth, but the human species is superior to other species. They call this anthropocentrism. Another problem, because we depend on all other species. If the trees weren't there, how would we be breathing? When you do deep breathing, pranayama, prana is life. That the breath weeds the commons of life. When you do pranayama, we say so hum. You are, therefore I am. But the you includes every other species. It includes all our ancestors. It includes all the human family far away who are shaping our lives. The illusion of separation and superiority go together, and they turn the web of life, which is multi-relational. It is complex. It is self-organized. Every part of that web organizes itself, not in isolation, but in interconnectedness. It knows exactly how to relate to the other. But when everyone does it with deep self-consciousness, then we have the whole web as a self-conscious web, with nobody imposing. In science now, we are talking about autopoiesis, self-making and self-writing and self-creation and the earth dance versus allopoiesis, the forcing of colonialism, the forces of fascism, the forcing of the destructions of democracy. The web is horizontal. It has no hierarchies. The mammals might be bigger than the microbes, but they don't have a bigger right to life. The right to life is the same for all, independent of size. For humans, independent of the color of our skin, the most superficial part of the human being is the color of our skin and how much it is pigmented. And yet colonialism taints this into a whole new bias, exclusion to be able to own some people with a dark skin as slaves, and from India, indentured labor. No, we have the same blood running through our veins. We breathe the same oxygen that the trees give us. We eat food in diversity, but the nourishing qualities of food are the same. And our co-creators in this dance of food as the web of life are the same. They're the same soil organisms, billions and billions. They're the same trillions of gut microorganisms, 60 trillion of us. We are only 10% us. So this idea of separation is also not only civilizationally wrong, it's so scientifically wrong, given that in the last 10 years, contemporary science has started to catch up in biology with ancient knowledge. Because I'm born in India, I'm gifted, being surrounded by the civilizational gifts of India, the biodiversity of India. I grew up with my mother putting neem leaves in the wheat and putting neem leaves in our silk saris. And then I find in 94, they've patented the neem, which is a natural pest control. I had started a campaign after Bhopal saying, no more Bhopals, no more pesticide killings. Let's plant neems, it doesn't kill anything. And 10 years later, it's patented. So I fought that case 11 years. It is among the cases of biopiracy and enclosures of the biological and intellectual commons. Thousands. We have fought 3, the patenting of neem, the patenting of ancient Indian wheat that does not contribute to gluten allergy. Everyone with an industrial diet is suffering from gluten allergies. The problem is not wheat. The problem is the way we have bred wheat for uniformity. And uniformity then becomes an assault on our gut microbiome. The case of basmati, I'm from Doon Valley. I'm sitting here from my mother's cow shed and returned here for the lockdown. We are famous for basmati, the queen of aroma. A Texas company makes pirates are basmati and calls it Texmati and patents it. Each of these cases we have fought. Each of these cases we have won. Neem 11 years, basmati 4 years. And for the case of Monsanto patenting wheat, they walked away even before the challenge actually started because we had established this is total theft. So this is part of the enclosures of the commons of life. When you start enclosing the commons of biodiversity, you start enclosing the commons of intellectual gifts. And because you've defined yourself as superior, you think it's your right to take the knowledge of indigenous cultures, evolved over thousands of years, of our grandmothers, of my mother, and claim it as your invention. So my journey for defending the commons of biodiversity, the commons of knowledge, began when I was sitting in a room with the old chemical companies. I nicknamed for ease of conversation, instead of saying Monsanto and Bayer and Syngenta and ChemChina and Dow and DuPont. And earlier they used to be about 60 of them, and then they merged and became 4. But I think it's just easier to talk about what they do. They make poisons. So I just call them the poison cartel because they grew out of IG Farben, the cartel used in Hitler's Germany to kill people in concentration camps. So the poison cartel sitting there and they're saying, we now will make money by taking patents on seed, by claiming we have invented the seed and redefining it as a machine. And then every peasant will have to buy our GMO seeds. And we'll make an international law that will make seed saving illegal, which was the intellectual property agreement of WTO. I said, no, you don't invent the seed, you don't invent life. Life is evolution in freedom and continuity. And the seed is an embodiment of this evolution. It gives you a crop, you save some seeds, it gives you the next generation. For thousands of years, a seed can renew the continuity of life, the continuity of the commons. So I said, no, I won't let you get away with this new narrative of colonialism. I'm going to defend the seed, learn from the seed, make her my teacher. We've created 150 community seed banks all over India. Globally, we've created a seed freedom movement to stop laws on patenting. In India, I was very privileged to work with our parliament, and our parliament said, plants, animals, and seeds are not human inventions. We are part of an earth family. Therefore, you cannot take a patent on this. And this is the law that I have had to use again and again and again when Monsanto claims monopoly ownership through patents. The last time they were in the Supreme Court with me, Monsanto actually said, the seeds are an empty container in which we pour chemicals which makes them come alive. That's the level of degradation of this mind. And as we are going through the Corona lockdown, I'm still keeping track of the enclosures of the commons of life. Yesterday, I read a piece, how in the name of defending the climate, my new favorite person, Bill Gates, has given huge amounts of money for making breast milk in a lab. Well, a breast milk is made in a breast. And this idea of artificial bioreactors, I have fought this 20 times over life, where Tracy, the sheep, and Dolly, the sheep, were defined as bioreactors. And, you know, I've done this work for so long, 5 decades. I smile and say, okay, there was a company in Edinburgh that said, sheep are just furry little factories, bioreactors, and we're going to genetically engineer them to make human protein. Well, that company is gone. Monsanto said they were the inventors of life. They've been bought out by Bayer. And I think if we continue the beautiful dance of life without giving and closing our minds to the new enclosures. I've written about my 5 decades of my Earth journey for this Biodiversity Day, which was on 22nd of May. Partly because I just wanted to go back and reflect on everything. A lot of it is in the book. on reclaiming the commons that Doug mentioned, that Synergetic Press is bringing out. In fact, they were wanting to bring out, an Indian publisher wanted to bring out an update of a book called Enclosures of the Commons. And when I went back to it, it was 97. And so much had happened after that. So we rewrote it and updated it. And that updated volume with 9,000 biopiracy cases, but not just the cases of biopiracy, the cases of celebrating life in a richness of diversity, because diversity is a principle of life. Life under containment, life under concentration camps is based on the idea of uniformity. And then the idea of violence, that because you don't fit into my idea of a superior human being, you are inferior, I have the right to exterminate you. The way human beings were exterminated in the concentration camps are the way species are being exterminated through pesticides, through Roundup. Look at the monarch butterfly, less than 1% surviving because of Roundup killing the milkweed, because of spread of GMO soya. Then you now have another illusion fooling the world, again in the name of protecting the planet. All of the new colonization is in the name of protecting the planet. And this one is the Impossible Burger. A GMO soya-based burger with then processed in the lab in Oakland, in California, with a genetically engineered yeast and artificial blood made in the lab to make it feel like meat. I said, if you're a vegetarian, eat plants, not plant-based plants. Diversity of plants. Go pluck the lettuce, go eat the carrot. Don't let your diet become GMO soya. It has destroyed the Amazon. It has destroyed Argentina. 123 million hectares of GMO soya. Is it feeding us? No, only 10% goes to feed humans. 90% goes to make biofuel and animal feed and put animals in factories. It's the feed industry that has created the factory farms, because the subsidies were so high. So a very important place is to eat diversity. That's something I've learned in my 40, 50 years journey. That the earth gives us diversity. The earth's dance is a dance of diversity. Our work is the work of cultivating diversity. Our health is eating diversity. The 60 trillion microbes in our gut each have a different diet. They can't be fooled by GMO soya. They can't be fooled by the idea that you can cheat on food. In nature, in the earth, there is no cheating. In false political narratives, there's a lot of cheating. On supermarket shelves, there's a lot of cheating with labeling. The latest patent that we all must rise against is in that reflections of my earth journey. It's been issued during the lockdown in March of this year. And interestingly, the patent number, world patent, is 060606. And it is a Microsoft patent on mining our body activity and mining our brain functioning, to then be processed through absolutely giant-sized servers and processors, which are energy guzzlers and will become the biggest contributors to greenhouse gases. Already, the digital technologies are contributing 5% to climate change. But if everything was digitalized, can you imagine? But I want to give you the details of this patent. So they'll mine our body data, mine our minds, process it through algorithms which are going to define are we fit or unfit, just like the victims in Hitler's concentration camps were assessed with being fit or unfit, just like the civilizational narrative of colonizing indigenous cultures labeled us with a little bit of color as barbarians. To be white is not to be civilized. To be civilized is to hold the earth together, to hold the earth dance. To be civilized is to know we are part of one humanity. So the two big leaps we need to make in this decade that we have, and the decade that we have is the year 2020 to year 2030, the Intergovernmental Panel has warned that if we don't shift and continue business as usual, we will destroy the conditions of our life. Within 100 years, humanity will be extinct, like the 200 other species we drive to extinction every day. The Convention on Biological Diversity has given the same warnings, and in their case, they're focusing a lot on land use, on pesticides, on the extinction crisis. We are in the 6th mass extinction, and the human extinction is predictable if we keep going down this path of colonization, of enclosures, of monocultures, of superiority. We do have a chance to turn around by joining the dance of the earth, which is joining the reclaiming of the commons. And reclaiming of the commons means the commons is for all. It's for the microbe. And I totally disagree with this new vocabulary of war against microbes. Microbes are our next enemy. I have watched insects disappear as insects were made our enemies and pesticides were sprayed. As plants were made our enemy and weedicides were sprayed. We are microbes. We are walking microbes. We are only 10% human cells. We can't declare a war against microbes. This narrow Cartesian mechanical mind, which only wants to extract the next set of profits, has already caused too much harm. And if we give them another decade, there'll be nothing left for humanity. The earth will find new ways to rejuvenate. She'll find new species to evolve. She can do without us. We can't do without the earth. And that's why we must dance with her. We must dance according to her laws. And that's the reason I talk about earth democracy, the rights of Mother Earth. Our rights flow from the earth. Our rights to food, water, breath are all gifts of the earth. And we have these gifts to the extent that we protect the rights of Mother Earth. I have over these years realized there's so much to learn from the earth, from her species, from the seed, from the soil, from the pollinators, from the bees. And therefore, very organically, an Earth University has grown on the biodiversity conservation farm of Navdanya in Dehradun, in Doon Valley. And I hope some of you will be able to visit when the lockdown is lifted. I hope some of you will anyway buy the book, which will tell you about my journey to defend the commons of the living biodiversity, the amazing knowledge tradition, so that we can move out of the mechanical mind into the biodiversity of the mind. We can move out of violence and cruelty in the name of progress and in the name of, I just feel that the way these lockdowns have been managed is so violent. Of the 3.3 billion people, 1.9 billion have lost work. Half of India has lost work. And in India, we say rozi, roti. The work you do every day is your bread. When you steal your work, you steal the bread. But because we are one humanity on one planet, no one set of human beings has the right to appropriate the bread and the life from other species and other human beings. This is why true democracy must now flourish. I celebrate the young people who are marching the streets for a new resurgence of a common humanity through diversity, for everyone who's respecting the rights of Mother Earth and realizing the rights of the predators, the exploiters, the colonizers cannot be the basis of the future of humanity. We need to write another narrative based on the rights of Mother Earth, one humanity sharing one common planet and taking care of her with our deepest love, with our deepest compassion, and our deepest courage. Thank you.